Hello and welcome back to the Tales of the Whoniverse podcast. Tonight, it's a return to audio. Yes, hello, I'm Matt. And yes, we haven't been here for a little while, so sorry, there have been life-changing things, there have been exciting stuff. And we have somebody leaving their house because they're having a pack up and closing down sale. They'll be moving on soon. It's Aidan the Shetland Hoovian. Hello again, Aidan.
You make it sound like I'm like closing down a shop or something. But no, no, it's just a moving flats. Yes.
Uh,
Next episode, you'll probably see me in a new place without this
yes,
white wall.
Yes, it's a regeneration. He's about to change once again, but will he be in cosplay? Will he be in spandex? You'll have to stay tuned for that exciting episode.
Or will there be even more of me?
Yes, more Colin Baker. You can't beat Colin Baker whatsoever as the Doctor, nor can you beat Paul McGann or any of the other wonderful incarnations of the Doctor. But tonight, we are stepping back in time to a different point in the Doctor's life, the nearer end of his timeline, chronologically for the audio. So, in the Mel point of the timeline, which everybody nearly knows is like the near end of the road, where this is the chronological point where he's on the journey to find the Valyard in a future story one day called The Brink of Death and the whole box set, The Last Adventure. But for now, he's about to reface an old enemy in disguise as a really nice guy. It's Davros. Oh, spoilers if you've never heard the
Yeah.
Juggernauts. I mean, it's a very old audio, but what are
Yeah.
you doing here if you've not heard it?
Yes, I thought his name was Professor Vaso.
Yes. Oh, you gave it away, Professor Vassal, Professor Davros. Oh, nobody would have seen that coming, Terry Malloy on the cast list. But
And
anyway,
plus, he's on the cover.
yeah. If you didn't think Davros was in the story, you went in blind going la 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 la. But anyway, let's get started. Written by Scott Allen Woodard, who basically is, sorry if I've butchered your name because we were trying to remember how to pronounce it. Is one of the rarest beasts at Big Finish. He is one of the writers who is American. And you wouldn't believe it when you hear the story because of how wonderfully the script is performed with all the English cast. Especially the Sixth Doctor, it feels absolutely an essential Collins story, especially for Mel, of course. So before we get into opinions and reviews, Aidan, like we normally do, I'll start a little bit differently about a little bit of thoughts about the story. I think if you have only ever experienced Mel on the TV side of the Scream Queen, this for me was the major turning point for me. It was the second audio, I believe, to feature Mel and Sixie as a crew on audio. Well, I'm just trying to remember personally, but for me, this is an essential story for Mel. It's more about her life as a computer programmer. It delves a little bit into her home life at Peace Pottage because you have the address of where she lives. And for the first time ever, I think this is the closest Mel has ever had a love interest in Doctor Who, was this story. And
Yeah.
she had doubts about the Doctor in this story, and they were bestest of friends. But what interests me the most about Mel in this story is her moral compass. She hates liars, and the way that she was with Professor Vassos, and the Doctor when all the truths came out later in the story. I think she was about finished with the Doctor. I thought there was going to be a major fallout at one point. But I love that side of Mel because you've never got to experience that with her on the telly. But before I get a bit more into it, Ada, what's your opening thoughts again on the Juggernauts?
Yeah, it's almost of what you already said. It's like, especially with Mel, because I'd say like I know there's like some stories before with Mel with Big Finish, like the Fires of Vulcan, the One Doctor, and Bang Bang a Boom. But I'd say this is definitely the story which, in a way, redeems her character. Like I'm not the biggest fan of season 24 for a multitude of reasons. It's definitely the choices were made season for me.
I
But
know, but I know exactly what you mean because it's a very Marmite season. You love it or you hate it.
Yeah, and Mel there was just screaming. Yeah, I don't need any other words. It's just she's just screaming most of the time.
Yeah. I'd think with the
But
one Doctor, Bang Bang of Boom and Fires of Vulcan, just quickly before we carry on. To them, she was a companion in that story, and I thought this is good. She's just having great fun with the Doctor. This is a lot of development that you wish that she had, which I think the show's kind of fixed with now. But carry on, carry on.
yeah, yeah, because I'm trying to think what else to say because I know like I think this was one of my earliest Big Finish listens as well. Like, and I think it was thanks to one thing in particular as well. Because I know I'll probably end up mentioning this documentary as well, like when we eventually review Davros and Terra Firma. But the Davros Connections documentary on the Remembrance of the Daleks special edition DVD, that's kind of what introduced me to Big Finish in a way. Because it introduced me to those three stories plus I Davros, like the last part of which Scott Allen Woodard also wrote, Guilt.
Yes, and of course there's that little animated segment which acts kind of like part of the sequel they animated for the Davros mission, didn't they? Where you see live action Davros with CGI.
Yeah, like yeah, I think it's at various points, like mostly like I Davros, but there's also a bit for Davros and Terra Firma at the end.
Yes, I only remember because I've seen the clips on YouTube. But let's look at the story as a whole. So Davros is undercover, basically. He is hiding away. He's tricked all this colony into thinking he's a really nice guy because he's a wanted criminal. Something that the show has never explored when Davros was on screen. That he is known in the galaxy for the crimes for creating the Daleks, which never really gets touched upon. And it is true, it's his fault that the universe has got massacring, menacing pepper pots. And in some ways, it's kind of like Davros in the sense of he talks about the accident, he talks a bit about his regrets. I think this is the most humanized Davros gets at points in any of his Doctor Who media, with 60, I believe. But then he lets
Yeah,
himself down, obviously, by the titular or the titular, or however people pronounce that one. And maybe myself, I've also butchered that one because I'm trying to remember to pronounce it. But it's the Juggernauts, the mechanoids. I don't think it's actually. I never picked up on the first listen. It's really vile how he made this iteration of them out of human
yeah,
remains, and he basically was like making deals with hospitals and one guy to like get him all the dead to be mechanoids because hey, you don't need them anymore. That was actually quite
yeah,
sickening.
yeah.
So
Not only that, yeah. Sorry, Troops, but it's not only that, but also like killing people getting too close to that project by killing them with remnants of his Necros Daleks and you extracting their brains and hearts. Oh, wait, was it just their hearts or was it their brains as well?
I think it was the organs. It was everything that he could
Yeah,
get his
yeah. I
hands
remember
on.
the heart. The heart was definitely there, but I can remember the brain was too.
Yes, it was, and there was all blood and everything that made the Doctor nearly sick,
Yeah,
and as well as Mel.
yeah. Because Juggernauts were actually dripping with blood.
I think that's the first time that mechanoids out of any medium has probably had the darkest iteration of them. Yes, it's in some ways it's a sequel to the chase for the mechanoids because the
Yeah,
Doctor brings up that first encounter with them. But this, it's actually more horrifying than that first one, especially when they mention the Necros experiments with the humans and the Daleks.
yeah. Because I know in the story the Doctor does say that Davros probably would have continued on with that line of experimentation, but then he discovered the mechanoids, like on Lethe, and realized that could be a better line to work with.
Oh yes. And now, also, I think what was the sweetest aspect of the story was that guy who just fell in love with Mel, and yeah, they
Yeah,
bonded
Mr.
over
Gatlin.
time. Yeah, it was a shame, wasn't it, that he died in the
Yeah,
story. But this was the closest. I think for me, this was the first time Mel was treated in the same vein as like Ace was on audio, close to leaving her doctor, even though he was fond of him for romance. And I think this is the first time we ever experienced Mel nearly on the fallout with the doctor, and she's not that type of person to fall out with him.
yeah. I've not listened to every Mel story, but it's definitely the only example I've heard. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any in like the Seven Ace and Mel stuff because I've still to get to that arc. I'll get
Oh,
there one day.
in the Robots one, she was shocked how Seven was starting his manipulator arc, and that was early season 24. For him, he literally kicked off with a woman, threatened to shut her down, and that's shock factor. That to me, that was as big as this character development for Mel. Like to see the difference between her and her doctors. She loves and adores six or seven, but these elements nearly caused her to be, in a way, disgusted with her doctors. But as I was going to say for the story, it's small. It's kind of like it's not based on the siege, but it's a really small cast, and everybody has such an important part to play. Even that slime ball that was egging on Davros. Do you remember the guy who came in and he literally threatened to who was trying to threaten to shoot Davros, and that dodgy old Dalek exterminated him.
Yeah, Brower.
Your Brower. Honestly,
Yeah,
the characters were all so memorable to me. Like, there was no small parts in this story. Everyone was like a major player.
yeah, especially like Brower and Chryson.
No, I'm gonna say I've got a favorite moment, and it's just come back to me. My favorite moment is the realization, the horror and disgust of Mel when the Doctor had explained who Davros was, what he created the universe. But when he called the cavalry in, and she was disgusted that her doctor had brought in the Daleks to basically
Yeah,
arrest the captor. She said, "You're just as bad as them." You could hear the horror that the Doctor had nearly lost trust with Mel in this story, and
yeah,
that's what I think Scott made such a good story for.
yeah. Because I know at least with Six, then at least he did it with the best of intentions. Like he did it just to rescue Mel. Like whereas Seven, he'd be like, "Oh, this is some part of my chess game."
Oh, he would have planned it from the get-go. Where he would
Yeah,
have probably allowed himself to be captured by the Daleks, and he would have been happy to work with this little maniacs compared to Six.
yeah, and then he'd be like, "Ashes to ashes, dust to dust."
But no, in regards of this to me, this feels like this was the setup for the Daleks' civil war again, like for Remembrance.
Yeah,
Like you remember, because it feels like it's a continuation on Necros. Remember when the Daleks all came in exterminating them? This feels like a direct continuation of that. It
yeah,
feels like they're building this up for the Remembrance era.
yeah. Because I know it's like specifically placed in between Revelation and Remembrance, like because the ship, yeah, because the ship that was was taking Davros Ascaro, like that was the ship that crashed on Lethe. No, it's Beta Orionis. They mentioned in the story.
Yeah. And also, what I mean is like the Daleks that kidnapped Sixie, I feel like they're the renegade ones to him.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah, they did mention that in the story, like that Six definitely named them as the Renegade Daleks.
exactly. So that would mean one thing within the aid and that. Scott really took inspiration from both stories to make such a great combination. This is like a bridge story. If you hadn't heard the other Davros and Dalek stories of Big Finish, you'd think this would be ready to go into Remembrance the way it ended.
Yeah, like oh, oh excuse me.
But the sacrifice of Davros was also something that really impressed me. Like, no matter what people may think of him, the fact he gave up his life to save Mel, who he had such a strong connection with in this story. I think this is the first
Yeah,
companion he ever adored in this story.
and even after like Mel set the Juggernauts on him.
he would still have saved her. And Davros isn't that person normally.
Yeah, and then he just blows up, and you're like, well, there's not really going to be much left of him after that. And I think I'm not sure if this is outdated, but according to the Davros connection, the next chronological point is Remembrance of the Daleks. I might be wrong. That might be out of date now. So.
Well, yeah, because since then he survived and was in Waterloo, and obviously he's coming back in the recent audio that's literally probably set after the Juggernauts for him, because obviously he's back with Mel and Perry.
Yeah, like, and he's back in that chair again.
Yes. Whereas I think the Curse of Davros one, I think that's more in line of him getting ready to start the Imperial Dalek look, but I have to go re-listen to it because it's based on the Dalek on the cover.
Yeah, because honestly, like, this is going to be a bit of a side thing. I'm just going to have a bit of a joke about it. Just like when Davros comes back in Trials of a Time Lord, he'll just be like, the Doctor will be like, "Oh, I thought you blew up Von Lethe," and then he's like, "'Tis but a scratch, Doctor."
Well, the way he appears at the end of the new trailer they did, I wouldn't be surprised if they do some kind of joke like that.
If that actually happens in the story, I'll be like, "Oh my god, 10 out of 10."
Yeah, I think Davros, though, I think what makes this story special, to go back onto the earlier aspect, is the professor element. Because to me, I think how Scott described the story in the interview I was reading, this is the closest to an alternative version of Davros before the accident. Yeah, he's still wheelchair bound, but this is like, what if he actually never was evil, like Masters of War explored? I think this is a beautiful story for Davros in the sense that this is how you'd envisioned him if he never turned evil and he never created the Daleks.
Yeah, because you know he hides like everything, like, because he doesn't have the modulator like most of the time until partway through part 2, like when he drops the act altogether.
Or when the Doctor sees him on the screen, like in part 1, where he's like, Davros! And then what's he do with Mel? Like, he gets all offended by it.
Yeah, because I think it's like after, like, I think Chryson like tells Davros he knows who he is, and Davros confirms that Chryson's a drug addict.
Oh, that! Can I just say, Davros, I like the facade was dropping as it was going on. He's like, I don't know what you mean, and all that, because he forgets that everyone in that colony, he's made them see him as that human. But outside sources like the Doctor, who already knows him, and everyone else, and that gentleman who's seen him, didn't know what Davros looked like. So the facade got dropped.
Yeah, it's like everyone like in the colony had that implant, and like when it was turned off, it would show him for what he really was.
Yeah, because he was he claims he was afraid, but no, I think now, looking back on the story fondly, when I first heard the Juggernauts, I didn't quite understand half the references, because one, it had been a long time since I watched Revelation. I hadn't seen The Chase at that point, but going back into it with this knowledge, it makes a lot of sense, like why Davros knows about the Dalek killers, because he probably learned about the Chasers, about the mechanoids.
Yeah, because I think Davros didn't actually know about the Doctor's first interaction with him, because I think he wanted to know about them, but I don't think the Doctor got to tell him about it, because, you know, like Mel was coming into the room and then the Renegade Daleks came along.
Yes, and also I think this is the most brutalist Mel story. I think at some point they always say some people in life, no matter how good you are, you do have a nasty streak. And for Mel to have a nasty streak setting the Juggernauts on Davros just proves even the nicest person can have a bad day.
Yeah, like, I mean, hopefully she didn't go full Joker after that.
I know. I thought you'd get my little reference about that.
Yeah, I got that little reference to the Killing Joke.
No, but like in the colony itself, it felt like a massive mega world. It felt brilliant to explore these characters, and this one guy, as I say, Jeff, that was it. Jeff was his name, and
Jeff Gatlin, yeah.
Yeah, it was so sad though. That woman who turned him down, he was like telling him to give up on Mel, and he never did.
Yeah,
and when
it was like Sonali.
Sonali, yes. And then when his death was announced, I thought Mel was going to storm out there like Kay stood in Love and War. I thought that was going to be the end of her time for the Doctor for a little while.
Yeah, but yeah, because I know we're kind of drawing these like 6 and 7 comparisons, but yeah, I definitely know that 6 like definitely would have like done what he did here, like try to console her, like.
Oh
And
yeah, I think if the story pushed it in that route for a while, I think this would have been a game changer for the main range. I think this could have essentially been the stopping off point for Mel, and she wouldn't have come back for a while because she would have probably been healing because she was broken by the Doctor.
yeah,
But you know, if they'd done this, Aidan, it's like a later story in the timeline after you got to know them, and this is like on the verge of like the last adventure. Could you imagine this story led into that with the Valyard? It could have drifted them, and then they could have reconciled in the end before 6 turned to 7. That would have been a great send off for them two.
yeah,
Like, because then you would have had a story where they had a bit of a fallout, and the next story they essentially save each other before he turns into someone new in front of her eyes. That would have been a completely different timeline.
yeah. Before he becomes the short Scotsman.
Yes, so we've talked a lot about positives of the story, but did you have any negatives, or do you think it's good as it was?
I'd say it's as good as it was, but there was like this is going to be really, really nitpicky because I really love the story so much. Like, because there's one line I think Jeff has, like when they discover, I think it's when they discover like the security personnel Lowen that got murdered by one of the Daleks, and they discover her headless body on the operating table. And I think there's one line that I just didn't really agree with, which is like, "Oh my god, it's Lowen! Like, how could you tell? I can tell." And it might be something I'm missing here, but like I don't get that line. Just like I can tell. Like
What did he do? Did he just feel her all over? Like, yeah, that's her body, all right.
yeah, like I'm guessing he must have just seen like the name tag or something that said Lowen. Like
Yeah, because unless you recognise the clothing, that's the only way you can do it.
yeah, like but apart from that one line, like again, real nitpicky stuff. But yeah, it's like it's as good a story as it is. I'm just like it's honestly like one of my personal favorite Dalek stories, like from Big Finish.
There's only one bit I wanted, and it's not even a nitpick per se, it's the opening. I really like how we're already on an adventure with them. I just wanted to know what was the story that led them to that ship that the Daleks would ambush them on. Because surely it must have been like exploring the galaxy at that point, you know, when they're like in the TARDIS and that. They just did like a little opening scene. That's perfectly fine by me. But apart from that, I was happy. It felt like, you know, oh, yes, I forgot. No, how to go back onto the positive quickly. How great was that opening? Because you could feel the Doctor and Mel, like when they were parting company for a little while. It sort of felt like 42 in the sense of, you know, like the escape pod, but not like Burn With Me, but like
Yeah,
in the sense the Doctor and Mel, they're parting company, and it feels like he's going to come find her. Like when the Doctor's like, I'll save you, I'll save you. It's like it felt wonderful, but you could tell Mel didn't like it being it's like being on the Big Dipper. It's like it's like for an
yeah,
opening like that. It's incredible. You would never think of Doctor Who for like that era of there being an escape pod or being with some of the most brutalist, sickest stuff than what Big Finish does for like Doctor Who for the 80s Doctors.
yes,
I think for me, it's a great character piece of a story, the Juggernauts. Like, it gives you so much Dalek lore and the lore of the mechanoids. I think because, unfortunately, that's it. That's my only other gripe. Is because, you know, they're the main characters of the story, apparently, the Juggernauts, and you barely get time with them because it's all about
yeah,
Death Rock and the Daleks. So I don't think it's really a mechanoid story compared to, like, the Dalek Protocol was.
yeah. Because I will say like because that's one question I think they don't really answer, but I'm not sure if it's something that really needed to be answered. Like, which is, how did the mechanoids get to Lethe?
I think they were already found on there, so there might have just
Yeah,
been
like they're
some.
already there, but I'm guessing because I'm guessing they must have like traveled to like their own planet, Mechanus. I think was it Mechanus?
Yeah, but I don't know if
Yeah,
they are not new ones because the last time they were there, the Daleks were there, so I don't know if they can just travel throughout the universe. But that's a good
yeah,
story and a good point to explore throughout the universe. Because if you remember the Tunnel of Victoria stuff on YouTube, the mechanoids can fly as well as the Daleks, so they must have some means of transport.
yeah. Like, I'll have to rewatch that at some point.
Oh,
So
I
I watched
think
bits
so.
and pieces of it.
Yeah, I think they can fly the mechanoids now because obviously,
Yeah, I
why
remember
not?
seeing that, but not much. I can't really remember much else apart from like the Prime Strategist.
So I get this feeling they could have their own ships as well, the mechanoids, then, because otherwise they'll be stuck on the worlds they're on.
Yeah,
But in the sense of like a Six Doctor story, I think it's got great humour from 6 Years Always, especially when he turned up there when he was like when Mel was like, "Who's?" Oh, sorry, when she was like, "Who's knocking on my door?" Jeff, is it you? And Six is like, "Oh, we're
and
gonna
who
have
is
some."
Jeff? And
What?
who may I say is Jeff?
Yeah, Sixty always has great humour. But my hat's off to Scott though. Oh, and a little known thing. So, do you hear an announcer later in the story that they keep cutting off? That was Gary Russell.
Uh, Wait, is that the one that's like mining shift B? Please report to so and so.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, that was Gary Russell, the guy in charge of Big Finish at that point.
Yeah, because I know Nick Briggs was like well, obviously the Daleks, but
And the
also like
Mechanoid.
but also like he was like the voice like oh like like that thing. I was like, good morning, Miss Bush, like and just telling you random things, including like warning, this is a restricted area, like
Yeah, yeah.
restricted by order of Professor Vaso.
Yeah, they said there's an announcement they're played by Gary Russell, so you've got Briggs and him at that point when they were act. I think that's what I like about early Big Finish is like the writers and the actors. They had a load more to do, like in the sense of
Yeah,
you get some people direct. Gary Russell was the director because I looked at the credits, but then he had a cameo role. Then you've got Nick Briggs, who's on hand. I think it made Big Finish feel a lot more bigger at that point, like especially when Alistair Locke used to do the Daleks as well.
yeah, like four stories, I think. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if he
like
did in
Jerry.
Dalek Empire. I haven't listened to that yet. One day, but not today.
Yeah, but I think sometimes you just need that to make the world feel a little bit bigger. But apart from it's wonderful stuff, and I think the Juggernauts is it a store? Now this is the question to ask. Is the Juggernaut a good starting on point for new fans of Big Finish? And absolutely would say it. Yes, yes, it's a good starting on point. You don't unless you've basically watched Remembrance and Revelation. That's all you need for this team. I think
Yeah,
if you're going to watch Trial of the Time Lord and the Mal era, you're perfectly safe because this will make you forget any screaming that has come before. This is a good jumping on
yeah,
point for the finish.
yeah. Because I know it does have a slight reference here and there, mainly towards the Sixth Doctor, referring to being like Evelyn. Oh no, no wait, she's gone.
And also, it's a continuation of the story of Davros because they bring that up.
Yeah,
Yeah, do you remember the last time we worked together?
yeah, just like with Transallied Inc.
So, yeah, it's got references, but it's not like in the sense of it's so heavy you can't enjoy it.
Yeah, it's just like passing remarks, just like oh, like this is just going to be like the time together that one time,
So
and you
I'm
set
going
up
to
a
make
nuke.
So, if you're going to listen to this audio, I'd say essentially, if you've watched TV Doctor Who, like you just need the Chase, Revelation, and possibly Remembrance. If you want to get a feel for like the Dark Imperial War, basically that's all you just really need. Audio-wise, you don't need anything. I mean, if you want to start Mel's journey, you can start anywhere. You can start with the One Doctor. You can start with Fires of Vulcan. You can start literally anywhere. Because
Yeah.
what I
Yeah,
liked
with
about the early
Waterworld
Big
as
Finish.
well.
Oh yeah, like Sixth Doctor with Hebe and Mel and friends old and new. But in a sense,
Travel through the stars,
Mel.
Jupiter and Mars, with a sixth Doctor. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I had to finish that.
No, it's like Mel's got. I think she's got one of the easiest timelines for Big Finish. Like she, virtually like Colin, you compare her with anyone, and it just works wonderfully well.
Yeah.
So, last thoughts from me about. So, did I have any negatives? No, not really. It flew by. It did its job. I think it was heartbreaking the ending for me. That Mel's she promised that she'd keep Jeff's music box forever, and I think she was so heartbroken that she abandoned it on the planet.
No, she abandoned on the Dalek ship, right, like before they took
On,
off.
on the ship, yes, because I think if she kept it, I think it would have just brought too many sad memories for her.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of Big Finish is like how could you go from the Scream Queen to feeling for Mel when you're with these audios? This is what they do best. It's the character pieces that you just wondered why the show didn't do it originally for them.
Yeah.
Now let's look at a little side different thing before we wrap. So if Big Finish today, like had writers like Scott, Scott during the 80s, or your people like Matt Fitton, I think they would have basically given Mel the love that every other companion would have gotten. You just needed to give Mel the right writers, I believe.
Yeah. Because otherwise you get. Yeah, I'm not gonna attempt it because otherwise I'd probably hurt my throat.
I thought you were going to do the Omega What again.
No, I was gonna try to do a proper Mel scream, but yeah. If I try that, my throat's just gonna get damaged.
I could never do that, and if I did, I'd think I'd be in a hospital with no vocal cords.
Oh god.
But what I'm trying to get is, I think for me, Big Finish at the heart of it, it's Bonnie Langford got her redemption story. Colin
Yeah.
got his redemption story with the fans. I think these audios are not to be brushed off. If you really want good quality fun, yeah, some are really arc heavy. But even with like the Mel trilogy that she did with Seven later on, it that doesn't really feel arc heavy. It feels like you could just go into them, like without listening to the backlog. All you really need from that one is a Life of Crime and Quantum Possibility engine, but that's a whole other story and a whole other review.
Yeah. Yeah, and that goes on to the last day, which I've still got a while to go till I get to that one.
Yeah, they can't just say. I think they really are putting Mel for really good ringers here. Computer programming
Yeah.
show, and the funniest one was in the whole Mel arc. I don't know if you've done the box sets after Water Worlds, but there's one particular story from the penultimate set, where it says Broadway belongs to Mel, and she actually sings in it. So they get her to do like Bonnie on
Yeah,
Broadway.
because I've not gone to that one yet because I think I got caught up with so many other arcs, like mainly the Hex arc and that also the Lucy Miller arc. So yeah, that'll definitely be one of the next ones I go to. Like,
Oh, it's so funny because they just start getting into singing an American accent, and it's just like they just basically wrote that for Bonnie, didn't they? Because Mel's like, I hate
yeah,
singing, and then you've got Bonnie who loves singing.
yeah. Now the question is, will that mean we'll get Mel singing in season 2?
Who knows? Who knows? But that's what I loved about it because obviously Mel here. I mean, who'd have ever thought that her second audio, because her first one, let's go back to it with Colin, was with a singing blob played by Matt Lucas, you have Christopher Biggins, and now you basically had her with the creator of the Daleks. What a world change from a comedy from the first one.
Yeah, and the fact this, because I'm pretty sure like, this and We Are the Daleks got a kind of reference to an Empire of Death, like basically acknowledging that Mel had met the Daleks.
Yeah, I do want. Yeah, because there are people who are thinking it's not Big Finish. You can't be banding it to the. Well, hello, Mel. You can do whatever you want with Mel on telly because her era was so short lived.
Yeah, you got Trial of Time Lord and then season 24.
Absolutely. So you just never know what Russell's going to acknowledge. I mean, between you and me, I think he could acknowledge the story that he wrote for her, the one where it was the mind of the Hodiak. You just never know.
Oh, maybe.
Because it's written by him, so you never know. You could say that Mel's met that kind of pop monster before they do something like Mind of the Hodiak live action.
Yeah. And if that's the case, what else could they reference? Damaged goods,
Oh,
maybe? Nah, probably
and
not.
well, to be honest, I'm really surprised she's meeting the Cybermen again because the Seventh Doctor one really implied that was their first meeting, and then this one's like, haha, this is the first meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, because I will say, I know this will be a review for another day, but Bata did Tinseltown. Yeah, I'll get to that when we get to that.
To be continued, but not being cancelled.
Yeah.
But thank you so much again, Ada, for joining. So, where have we been lately, people, before we go? It's just been crazy. It's been busy times since the whole finale. We are going to be coming back very shortly. There is going to be backlogs released. There's going to be a load of editing. Trust me on this one. What
Yeah.
else are we trying to do? We're trying to turn Saturdays into different things for for the podcast. So this has been an exception because obviously Aiden's getting ready for the pat down. Somebody completely forgot we were meant to review it last night, but chronologically,
Yeah.
that'd be all in a different time tunnel.
Yeah, it's partially a misunderstanding on my part. But,
Yes.
oh
On
well,
Wednesday, it's like, are you ready?
things happen.
On Wednesday, yeah, it's like on Wednesday, are you ready for Friday? I'm like, yes. On like Friday, like, I'm ready now. Like, ready for what? I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, because cause I said the weekend, I was thinking, okay, this will be like Saturday, Sunday, but yeah. Oh well.
It's one of those, but thank you again for joining. I've
Yeah.
been your host again, Matt. And don't forget Davros is watching, and Davros knows. Davros remembers. We've always said good night to the house. Thank you again for joining. We will be back hopefully soon. Fridays will be still Classic Who, Big Finish. We'll be delving into the modern Who onto Fridays at some point because obviously the show isn't back. We're also going to do the book reviews at some point. Saturdays are going to be now. Once every other Saturday, we're going to be reviewing different TVs and different films from shows and films across different franchises for Tales of the Whoniverse Presents. I've been Matt. I've been your host. Good night for me, and that's good night for you, Aidan. Good night.
Yes. Good night. I hope you all enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe to the official Tales of the Whoniverse YouTube channel, and of course, yes, Queen, Slay.
I completely forgot you did that. But thank you again, and good night.
Gotta make sure to do it.
Hello, this is Kerry's, and you've been listening to the Tales of the Whoniverse podcast.